Thank you, Mr. Stradom. Now, the frightful terror events of last week served as a reminder of how war and conflict within and between various countries seems to be tearing the world apart. But if we listen and look carefully, we do realize how similar we are as a human race. In fact, this weekend, youth at the One Young World Summit in Bangkok voted economic difference as the main driver of conflict between countries instead of religious or ethnic differences. They also expressed that a willingness to understand and accept one another instead of waging war would be more effective in bringing about peace. Tenji shares some highlights from the inspiring peace and security session.
In just over a week, we've seen extremist violence hit Mali, Nigeria, Lebanon and France and leave many more people feeling vulnerable and fearful. Threats to security and peace, however, are not a new occurrence around the world. Global youth shared their stories from their homes about how violence affects them and tendered solutions to peace.
Conflict, whether it happens in a marriage or it happens between nations, it usually happens when communication breaks down, when people no longer speak to each other. If we cannot speak about this, the conflict will continue. I know it's difficult to speak about religion and politics. Our job is to really empower people, voices like yours, to begin to have these conversations, to challenge them. And I know that's possible. If I can change, and if others around me that I personally know and work with can change, trust me, having this conversation can work. It can change the conversation on the grassroots. All we require is the permission to speak. We have to be able to name and shame and overcome the fear of having this conversation. And when we do, I think change is possible.
The Israel and Palestine conflict, as well as issues of terrorism in poverty-struck countries, also took center stage.
Terrorism is a complex problem. What looks like a religious conflict is actually also a consequence of poverty and injustice. However, it was inevitable for young Filipinos to keep a strict line between Muslims and Christians, similar to how it is inevitable for young people all over the world to associate Islam with terrorism.
Jews of my generation who speak Arabic, ironically, speak it for military purposes. I am stopped in Jerusalem daily by Israeli forces, mistaking me for a Palestinian. My identity embodies an alternative narrative, a narrative where an Iranian Jewish woman can speak Palestinian dialect simply to communicate with her neighbors and best friends, not to spy on them.
When a journalist is attacked, it's not just one less voice, but dozens are silenced. Attacking freedom of opinion destroys any chance we have for a real inclusive national dialogue. Our dialogue must be social. It needs to be inclusive. We must make it personal. By talking about social issues and encouraging each other, we can make it that way.
One young world. If our own countries wage war, it is our responsibility to wage peace instead.
Frenchman Francois Ray struck a nerve as he recounted the tragedy of his people, but also expressed a defiance to let terrorism win.
Killed by cowards in the name of something they believe is their religion. 129 people, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, lovers, died under the bullets of barbarism. In these kind of moments, it's not a question of being French, really. It's just about being human. You all know one or two victims, you and me, because we all are victims of terrorism.
Because of conflict, we're bringing up a world where young people have effectively lost their childhoods to militarization, illness and religious extremism. But we're also seeing a world where young people are adamant to see positive change and peace in their lifetime and are adding their voices and skills to the movement towards change.